Hey there. Today we're looking at collision detection. Now, you're going to have to know what debugging is. You already know what that is. You know what an if statement is. Common programming structure that implements conditionals, as well as abstraction, simplified representation of something more complex. We're going to be looking at two new pieces of code today. You've got sprite is touching, and you have the target. sprite.debug, which isn't a major piece of the code that you'll be using, but it could be helpful, and you'll see why in a little bit. I'm going to jump to 11 so you can kind of see what we got going on here. Is touching basically represents a collision. Notice over here you got a knife getting close to the watermelon. It changes. It touches. It's a collision. You might think of two things running into each other like a car collision. It's similar, but it's not. It doesn't have to be as violent. So, let's look at this real quick for your purposes. Looking at collision in the grid below, draw two square sprites on the left-hand line, right here. The sprites can be touching or not. Let your partner see. Do not let your partner see their sprites. Okay? Using the grid, find the Y position of the sprite, the middle of your square, and the sprite's height. How tall is it? If it starts at 10 and it goes to 8, it's too tall. Sprite 2, same thing. Now, copy the information onto here, okay? And then trade with your partner. Then turn your picture over, read the directions. The whole point is to determine whether or not the sprites are touching, okay? At any rate, if they are touching, so like, let's say this cursor, if it gets to 6 right here, 6, okay, the Y position, boop, touched it, collision, okay? So anyway, that's what you'll be doing. That's not as important as necessarily as what you're going to be doing here. So let's move on. Frog jump. You gotta get your frog. But look what happens. See how the mushroom kind of tilts a little bit when it hits the frog? That is, what code do you think would help the computer know whether the two sprites are touching? Well, if you look back, collision detection, sprite is touching. It's like a true-false statement. Conditional, if they're touching. So you'll see, because we're going to be using them in if statements a lot. All right, go back to 2. Just a sample, run, finish. You've already seen it. That's why I'm finishing it so quickly. Collision detection. Okay, do this. You do not need to change any code on this level. Read that. Read the if statements inside the draw loop and find the different sprite properties and how they're compared. Discuss the code with your partner. Look at this. So if tac x is greater than balloon x and tac x minus balloon x is less than half the width of tac with balloon width and tac x less than balloon x and tac x minus balloon x is greater than minus tac width divided by 2. Seriously, just move it over. If those things pop, it works. So it's a lot of code. Could you imagine writing this every single time you want there to be a collision? I don't want to deal with that. So that's why we're doing X. Okay, collision. If, look at this, if tech, just draw the, inside the draw loop, drag the is touching. Just drag it, is touching right here. And then just do that. Drag the is touching block into the if statement. That's it. If tack is touching balloon. Okay. Don't do the bottom part yet. Then so yes, do the bottom part. If tack is touching balloon, drag the is touching block. Set animation to popped. Look, we did it. What you gotta do? A lot less if statements going on. Run. So yours is, your blender is just going to, so use the is touching block to make the blender shake back and forth when the apple sprite touches the blender sprite. That's all you gotta do. The shaking motion is already coded using the random block, so you just have to check when the sprites are touching. Okay? Challenge, can you make the apple disappear when it touches the blender? Let's give it a try. Okay? Give it a try. I'm not going to show you that yet. I'll show you that later. Collision detection next. Okay? Use the play sound block. The world, follow these directions, please. Okay, I just clicked on this, grabbed, copied the link, or copied the code, the URL, and I put it in there. That's what makes this sound. If you can't hear it, I'm sorry. You might not be able to hear it, but it's super loud in the headphones. Okay, 7. So here, if, use the if, comma, is touching, and the set animation block to change the horse sprite's image when the rainbow touches it. The unicorn image is already loaded. So here's what it should do. You click run, horse goes, or the rainbow moves into the horse, and that's it. Mine, boom. I could show you the code, but I'm not going to because I want you to learn. Okay, but you put it in the draw loop, background, use the if, is touching, okay? Do that. You got this. That's going to be the assessment part. Do these to continue on your learning. Run the code and use the arrow keys, move back and forth the balloon. Okay? In the code below, change balloon debug false to balloon debug true. Okay? It changes what, see this green loop area or the green outline? Okay, it will change that, and you're going to have to change it. Add new debug block to the code and set the tack sprites debug property to true. So do the same thing. Just do the exact same thing. Here's the debug. Run the code again, then discuss with your partner why the balloon is popping early. Mine doesn't pop early. Why would yours? Challenge, can you use the animations tab to resize the balloon? The animations tab, yo. Right there. What do? Figure that out. It's somewhere. You only have to click one thing once you get into here. Okay. Almost there. 9. Okay, you're going to want to make the bunny use the if and is touching blocks to determine whether the bunny has caught the carrot. If it has, do the following 3 things. Use the counter pattern on the score variable to increase the score. Use the counter pattern. Okay, remember we're using this to increase the score, not to change the speed of the bunny. Reset the caret's X position off to the right-hand side of the screen. Notice how mine, it gets to the end, goes over. Watch what happens if I catch a, oh, look, it comes back. Okay, and my score is counting up. Set the caret's Y position to a random number between 10 and 390. Just like, okay, you can do these things. Do this. Just do what it says. Don't overthink this. Okay? And finally, part 10. Okay? Do this. Add at least 2 effects when your sprites collide. I did the frog. Look at that. When they collide, the mushroom comes back. And okay, when they do collide, it actually adds a score. Ah, looks like I made an error. All right. So that is collision detection. Remember, see, look at that. Collision detection is when the code detects whether or not 2 sprites have met up or touched, or however you want to do that. So collision detection, lesson 16. Remember, if you have any questions, you can talk to Mr. Gatzos or I. This should answer a lot of questions, and happy coding. Take care.